Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 16th episode of Gatsby's Yarn and the 6th in the MBA series. The MBA series is an endeavor to cover prominent B schools of this country. In this episode, we have one of the most prominent B schools of the country, a college that finds its mention in the top 5 B schools domestically, and the placement statistics back that claim as well. A college that just doesn't choose to affiliate itself with the CAT program, but has a separate examination for itself. For those of you still wondering, we're talking of XLRI Jamshedpur. And we have one of the most meritorious students from the 23 batch, Mr. Kashish, with whom over the course of the next 45 minutes, I'll be talking about the A to Z of getting to pursue an MBA. A very warm welcome to the podcast, Kashish. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Kripal. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm trying to pull along through the summer internships. I happen to be doing my MBA as well. So I'm
Oh,
having a
that's good to know. That's good to hear. Hope you're having a good time.
probably I'll get to decide that after I get done with my MBA. Anyways, you're currently situated in Bangalore. What domain are you working in, Kashish? You're working in consulting,
So,
if I'm not mistaken.
yes, I am working for BCG as a senior associate, which is front-end consulting.
This front-end consulting. Can you give us a little bit of an insight on how a single day of your work life is like? We get to read all of these stories, but probably we can get an insight.
Sure. So it actually is very different for everyone, right? Because everyone is working on a different project, and that could range from a finance project to a marketing project to an HR operations, anything. And for any industry, for me, what my day looks like is we start our day, our team discuss about the objectives that we want to achieve in the day and in the next week, and we try to work on each of those objectives, align the client, interact with client, and it is mostly about meetings. We meet everyone, do some Excel, do numbers, do presentations, and yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
It's all about curating solutions exclusively for your client and probably
uh,
brainstorm. Yeah.
More than solutions, finding the problem, that's the important part, right? Solution is the easier part.
Oh, that's an
Yeah.
insight that not a lot of people give us out on YouTube videos. That's something
Yeah.
good to know. But let's dwell into your college life exclusively while we talk about XLRI and stuff. So Kashish,
Sure.
now that you graduated from XLRI Jamshedpur, how does it all feel? A couple of years of college life.
I think it's a bittersweet feeling, you get the freedom, you earn, you get the money, everything's nice, but then you miss the friend, you miss the days. You consider your college life as your vacation days, and that it hits you when you realize that it is not going to come back, at least for most of us, right?
Oh,
So that's how it is right now. Trying to do a lot of work in consulting and personally also to make sure we have covered all aspects and explored enough to make a good call for the long run.
make a good call for the longer run, as in making a career choice. That's what you're
Yeah,
trying,
career and a personal choice.
and a personal
Right.
choice as well. Talking of personal choices, can you walk us through your personal journey of getting to, graduate from Christ and then get into XLRI Jamshedpur?
Sure.
Short.
So I did my BBA from Christ. I've been a person who's intrigued by things, very curious, wanted to participate in everything. So did that in the initial years of my Christ, but eventually narrowed down to theater, did a lot of theater, acted, directed plays. I was a cultural secretary in my Christ days and the student representative of one of the production houses that we had built. After that, went on to work with a giant called ExxonMobil, worked in a couple of roles. Learned how the MNCs of the world work, right? It is very different from what you would expect. And then realized that I needed a bit more challenge in my career, a more business focused role. So moved to Urban Company as a category manager, where I managed the spa and massage business for the South. 5 months after that, I started my MBA at XLRI, interned at BCG. In XLRI, I was a part of the placement committee, and yeah, currently I am here after graduating.
So you're one of those very few people who managed to prepare for the examinations while working, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not really, because So I had given three attempts. First was in my final years. Actually, yes. So I had done the basics during my college, but the second and the third attempt was while working, and that was with ExxonMobil. So the work was not very hectic, was manageable. So yeah,
So yeah,
did
that
that.
would help you give direction. And what about having this clear priority that that is the exam that you're going to focus on? Was that a natural choice or was there some
No,
other?
it was not. It was not a natural choice. My choice was I was not focused on any one thing. I wanted to get into a good B school. That was the objective. And for that matter, I was open to giving GMAT as well, right? If CAT or ZAT or Indian B schools don't work out for me. So I did give CAT. I scored a decent percentile, but the best convert that I had at that time was XLRI. So yeah.
The best convert you had on hand? I mean, how do you evaluate what your best convert is? Like exclusively by the brand name or something else goes into the
A
decision?
lot of factors. So for me, see, CTC plays a big role for a lot of people, but for me, more than that was I wanted to get into consulting. And there are a handful colleges where the top three consulting firms visit, right? So that narrows my choice down to seven to eight colleges. So pose that if you have to make a choice between those colleges, then you do your research, talk to alumni, find out what is the best fit for you, which for me at that point turned out to be XLRI. And I'm glad that I made that choice.
To all the aspirants out there, networking plays a very crucial role in determining what college you're best suited for. Probably reaching out to seniors and getting your queries addressed. Talking of you, Kashish, what was your interview experience like when you gave was that? What was your interview?
So people, this is, I think a lot of people have the notion that it is going to be, out of the box. For me, it was a very simple interview. I remember two aspects of it. There were two interviewers, one who focused on the application form that we had filled in. He picked up one question in particular, which was, what is your favorite subject and why? Interesting story. While I was filling up my application form, I was in the middle of my real brother's marriage, so I did not focus on that at all, right? And the favorite subject that I mentioned was interpersonal communication. And those were the questions that I got, and he boiled it down and asked me to give a real subject which has some content that we can talk about. So yeah, that was one aspect of it. Second, I had done a lot of internships in marketing, was very much focused in marketing initially. So the second interviewer happened to be a sales and marketing professor. So he asked me to make a brand strategy for Kinu. If you know what Kinu is, from the family of oranges, a fruit, right, which is
Mhm.
very popular in the north. He said that wherever you go, you see orange juice. Why don't you see Kinu juice? While Kinu has more health benefits. Yeah. So he asked me to make a brand strategy and give me a solution to it. Those
So
were the two major topics
you were
that we took.
capable of thinking on your feet on whatever you had to come up with.
Yeah, I took a minute or two to think about it. What are the reasons? Why is it not happening? And then we build it from there.
Probably having that ability to think quickly helps a lot in interviews.
Yes, and the ability and to ask for the time. What usually people do is as soon as they
Hurry.
get the question, they start answering. You
Yeah.
should, ask for time because they know that they've not asked a simple question. They
Putting things
want
into
you to think
perspective.
about it.
Yeah.
And even if your answer is wrong, but you have thought through every aspect of it, or at least major part of it, you are good to go, right? You can show that this is what I'm thinking about. You might or might not be correct.
Giving them that train of thought that yes, these are what I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah. The structure and what is what on what basis are you making those calls? That's all
Making
that matters.
oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. And Kashish, after you got through XLRI and after you got to land the campus, what were your initial impressions like? Is it all overrated or were you overwhelmed?
Actually, in the middle, the reason for that is that might not be the case for a lot of people. The reason is I did BBA from Christ, which in itself is a rigorous course if
Mhm.
you want it to be. I'll mention that in quotes because BBA is an easy degree. It's not a very difficult degree. But in Christ, you get a lot of opportunities in terms of FIS, where they make it very rigorous for you, right? And make it very difficult for you. I was a part of all that. So it was not very tough for me. People say that the first term is going to be extremely hectic. That was not the case for me, even though I was in the placement committee. So for me, it should or supposed to be even more tougher. I did not feel that. I felt that I was clear that I had to make the best of these 2 years, which you do not think while you are in your undergrad, right? So when you have that clarity of thought, then you try to make the best of the situations.
Exactly, exactly. Having that clarity of thought that yes, you have to derive the maximum exposure
Yeah.
whatever is put on YouTube. But Kashish, talking of your journey from Christ to XLRI, what about your 3 years of studying at Christ? Did it play a crucial role in readying you for an MBA?
Definitely. Definitely. I won't say in terms of academics because everyone learns that it's not the tough part of MBA, right? The tough part is to sailing through or standing out from the batch, right? People are going to people are going to study. How do you make yourself stand out? And that's what I think Christ prepared me for. I think I had built a strong hold on. I am a competitive person, and that is what Christ gave me. I used to participate in everything, and I used to make sure that I land up somewhere. So it helped me to
True.
know where I need to prioritize and how I should focus on those things. So I did not get into everything, but wherever I did, I knew that this is something I can be good at.
Oh, that makes sense. And what about Christ as a private institution being more of a hurdle in your MBA interviews? Did any of your interviews question you over your choice of pursuing BBA from Christ?
Not really, not really. But of course, they won't say it explicitly. But if you are from, say, SRCC or Hansraj or IITs, it increases your chance of getting into um, an MBA course, maybe XLRI or any of the top IIMs. So that does happen, but no one says it out explicitly.
No one says it out explicitly. That's something that I make sense of as well. Cut. And then when you got into XLRI, when the exposure was not of the level that you expected it to be, what was your reaction like? What were you trying to do to, probably what do you call it, make it more relevant?
So yeah, one thing that I heard while getting into MBA, the most difficult thing you can do is get into the placement committee. So that's naturally where I aimed at and get win the case competition. So these were the two things that I had in mind. I need to win some national level case competitions and get into the placement committee because the kind of responsibility you get is extremely high. So those are the two things that made me realize, okay, these are the two things that I have to do and stand out of the batch. That's what I focused my energy on.
Given the fact that you're from the placement cell, let's talk a little bit about the placements exclusively of XLRI. But before talking placements, what is the full form of XLRI? Xavier's Labor Relations Institute.
Relationship. Yes.
So is it more concentrated towards HR domains exclusively, or do the business management people get an edge as well?
Right. So I think that's a confusion that a lot of people have that XLRI is known for HR. It initially started as an IR program, which is industrial relationship, now known as HR, right? That is where the program itself used to be PMIR, which is personal management and industrial relationship, right? But that was how it started. Now the BM course is, I think, again, one of the best in India, and you get all sorts of opportunities, exposure that any of the top IIMs will give you.
When did the BM course start at XLRI? If you're aware of the exact year.
Not sure of the exact year, but yeah, it's been quite a while. I think more than 20-25 years.
For more than a couple of decades, then the rich legacy might hold well. And
Yeah.
Yeah. And talking of the comparison between typical conventional IIMs and XLRI, do you think there's literally nothing that you guys are missing out on when you
And a
compare?
BM program?
Yep.
In a BM
Yep.
program? Not at all. Not at all. It's exactly the same program. So you can say, if you can say we are doing a normal MBA, but there's also a specialized MBA for people who want to focus on HR. So these are the two courses. So for example, in I am Code, there's an MBA and there's an MBA in finance.
Mhm.
The thing is, in every other college, they start with a normal MBA and then,
So
focus on some specialization. Here it was the other way around. That's why that notion still
that
holds.
way, business management gives you that, complete kind of an experience. Yes.
Right, right,
Now
right.
let's talk a little bit about the placements, Kashish. So,
Sure.
what are the kind of companies that turn up at the campus? Kind of.
Sure. So let's talk about it from sector's point of view, right? So if you want to get into consulting, the major consulting firms, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Carney, Alvarez Marshall, Accenture Strategy, all the top consulting firms visit. From finance, companies such as JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, all Arga Capital, right? Avendus, all the major investment banking roles, markets roles, wealth management roles. These are the kind of companies that visit every year. Of course, there are new converts adding to this list as we speak about it. From e-commerce, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Flipkart, these are the companies that come in. FMCG, P&G, HUL, ITC, Dabur, Colgate, Nestle, all the top FMCGs that you can think of. So yeah, I think all the brands that you can think of do visit XLRI for their business.
Name it, you have it on the campus. That's how it
Yeah,
works.
yeah.
And is there any role idiosyncratic to XLRI? Something that exclusively students from XLRI land in these organizations?
The HR rules, right?
HR.
So HR rules, of course, there are other colleges like TIS. IIM Indore has their HR program, if I'm not wrong. MDI has their HR program. So those are the roles that come exclusively to XLRI, right? And people think that HR don't get paid enough. They are paid the same as anyone, in the marketing or finance role is. So if you really are interested in HR, I think this is the best place to be in. And of course, then, yeah, and of course, you have all the other roles that come into any other B school.
And what about the shortlisting process, Kashish? Does it happen exactly like how it happens in the IIMs, or is there any other process involved?
In placements or while getting into XLRI?
So, no, not about XLRI. Talking of
During.
SIPs and
Yeah. So that process is similar for all the top B schools, right? You usually it is not B school specific, but more of company specific. How does the company want to do the shortlisting, and what is the procedure that they want to follow? So for some companies, they'll ask for your CV and directly call you for interviews. For some companies, they might have a psychometric test, then a group discussion, and then they call you for an interview. For some companies, they have a case submission. Example, Prodman companies. So every company has a different process, and it is more dependent on how the companies want to evaluate the candidates more than how the B school wants it. Of course, we suggest certain things to the companies so that they have a streamlined process. But yeah, it is similar across all of these schools.
talking of the process, as in I refer to it, all of it happening in just one day, Kashish. All of
Oh,
it,
that way.
that way.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, yeah. So the SIPs this year, I think, have finished in a single day. So yeah, it's exactly the same.
So all the companies get time to schedule their interviews, regardless of the number of students. What is the batch strength, by the way, for BM?
For BM this year, it was 210. I think it has increased to 240, if I'm not wrong. I'm talking about BM Jamshedpur. I'm not including Delhi. In Delhi has another 120 students
Oh,
in BM.
but they have their own placements at the Delhi campus, right?
No, no. So that's the good thing about it.
You
It
guys
is a
are
common
uh,
it's a common placement process for both the campuses. Every student get placed. Like the all the candidates are in the same pool.
That makes sense. And what are the kind of factors that play spoil sport when a person seeks placements? What are the
Sorry,
factors
could you
that,
please
what
repeat that?
are the factors that play spoil sport when a person seeks placements from XLRI? What are the factors that lead to his chances of being selected being reduced?
Hmm. A lot of things again depends on
The company.
the kind of role that you are aiming for. I'll speak for consulting since I am from that background. So what they look for, in my opinion, is a well-rounded CV. You can't just say that I have worked for Google for 10 years and that's all I have done. Or if you're right, so you have to do something more than that. You have to show that you're a well-rounded personality and you are a person who can take up challenges. So what typically known as spikes in the CV, that you have probably a good leadership skill, or even if you're a good at sport, you have reached a national or an international level, you are able to show that dedication and put in that effort to stand out in that field what you have chosen for yourself. It can be anything, right? So a well-rounded CV helps, and spikes in certain areas, that also helps.
All the people trying to make a name in consulting, standing out needs to be a trait more than a hobby. That's what Kashish has been trying to tell. And talking of one of the most delicate aspects of placements, Kashish, what do you think about the role of placements? And now, here is where things get a little controversial. You
Yes.
placements should be outsourced to a third party institution instead of it being student driven.
Hmm. So let's think of it in this way. I think in India, ISB is the only B school
Exactly.
that does that. And apart from that, all the B schools have their
So
own placements, right? So there's a reason for it. Of course, this is not the first time people would have thought of it. There's a reason for it. And what I feel is it's majorly the skin in the game that you have, right? If I hire a placement agency and the placement agency quit or for some reason doesn't work for the college itself, that entire legacy goes out with that firm. At the end of the day, they are also running a business, right? When you are a part of the college, you have to make sure that your legacy or the brand name of the college stays intact because it is going to affect you in the long run. If tomorrow or 10 years down the line, XLRI does not perform well, it will affect me because I know that my brand value goes down as a person or as a possible employee in any other company. Of course, by that I don't mean that ISB is not doing good. They are doing great, and the placement agencies do well. But there are pros and cons to it. I feel for the typical MBA program, the pros outdo the cons.
and what about room for exploitation by the people who are a part of the placements? What about that, Kashish? Them
So I,
and stuff. Yeah.
that's a very valid point, right? And that's a point of concern also for a lot of people. Now, if there's something wrong, the solution is should not be to eliminate it, but to fix it, right? And let's think about how we can fix the problems that are happening. Let's be honest about it. These are real problems that students are facing, and their career might be impacted because of that. So, for example, in XLRI, what happens? You never place your own batch, right? And that's the case in all the top B schools, at least for the 5, 10 top B schools, that is the case. If I am in a part of placement committee, I am in charge of my seniors' final placement and my juniors' summer internship. I will not be a part of my own placement when my batch is getting placed, either SIPs or the final placement. So that eliminates the conflict of interest. That is one thing that we can do. Second is there has to be a governing body which is looking after the placement cell, right? That could be a faculty, that could be another team. Those are the kinds of checks and balances that you have to put in place to make sure that no exploitation is happening. Is these are the 2 points that I have said that happens in XLRI. Is it an exhaustive list? Of course not. Is there room for improvement? Definitely is, right? And we need to think of those things to make sure that it becomes a well intact and a safe place and a safe body to begin with.
You mentioned that instead of eliminating, we need to fix things. That's something out of Rang De Basanti that I watched in 2006. Right?
Right.
So completing, let's
Yeah.
fix things. And Kashish, how about the inclusivity of the batch? Is it inclusive enough for people from the lower socio-economic strata of the country?
So XLRI does not, at least they don't say that they have any quota in per se. It is totally based on merit, right? At least that's what the selection criteria says. So if you think that you are able to score enough and you are able to show that you have the merit to be in that batch, that's what XLRI focuses on.
From the perspective of being included in the batch activities, as in somebody who's marginalized will have a lot of difficulty in communicating, will have a lot of difficulty in merging with all of you. So, what
Hmm.
about that from that perspective?
So that's where the initial first month comes in, right? For XLRI or I think for any other B school, where they make you so comfortable with people. That's the kind of program or structure they have initially. They will make sure that you make groups with everyone and they will expose you to so many people initially when you don't know anyone so that you make friends and you make those committees and bonds. Once you are done with those informal icebreakers, is when your committee selections for all the committees and clubs start happening. That's where you participate with them, you make teams with them to achieve the same objective. So when you are in a team to achieve the same objective, of course you will work and collaborate. That's where all of these, though the purpose of the program or that structure is not to achieve or make everyone, uplift anyone, but the outcome comes out to be that because it is designed in that way.
That's the concept of externality, probably positive
Right.
externality.
Yes,
But
exactly.
but Kashish, you mentioned that XLRI as an institution aids interactions among the students. How does it achieve that? How does it help you all gel so well?
Sorry, XLI as an institute, I
You
didn't.
mentioned that XLRI as an institution aids all of your interactions, makes all of you comfortable through icebreakers. How does it precisely achieve that?
Okay, so not XLRI, I'll be a bit more specific. The committees, everything is student run, right? No, college does not play part in anything. So if once you get in, there is a theme that is organized in the initial few weeks, right? And they ask you to make groups and give you assignments. These are evaluated and they give you feedback on that. There's no outcome of it. You don't win anything, you don't get selected into any committee. It is just to make sure that everyone knows each other and people are out of their comfort zone. They will make you work throughout the night, give you assignments, and the seniors, of course, the seniors are doing it, and they will judge it so that they can give you feedback and they'll tell you how to improve on these things. They will do it initially without any objective because when the real things or when the real tests come in, you know what to do and how to do it, and that is the way XLI does it.
That's really conducive for a student run college. But again, Kashish, one more pertinent question that most of us have on our mind is how does XLRI ever help you in becoming better than who you are? When everything is run exclusively by students, then what is the point of being associated to a college? That is something that doesn't really make sense.
That's a good point, actually, a very great question. Why do we need that brand, right? So let's think about it in this way. Amazon, right? Sellers are selling, buyers are buying. How is Amazon helping? It gives you that platform, right? It gives you that platform, and that is where all the third parties come in. You
Yeah.
just need that platform. And of course, I can buy from Amazon and I can buy from any local website. The reason I buy from Amazon is because I trust it. I have that faith, and because they have built a infrastructure and that support system which gives me that trust. That is what all the B schools have done, right? They have given you the platform and they have given you the trust. The rest you do how you want to do it.
To all the people who couldn't get into their dream B schools, probably make your own dream B school and get
Yeah.
by having
That's
schools on it.
happening, right? That's
So
happening.
a lot of things are happening these days. But yeah, talking of extracurriculars again, Kashish, what are the kinds of committees and clubs that are a part of your college?
I think anything that you can think of, from singing, dancing, theater, football, any kind of sports, everything. And then these are, so I'll probably divide it into three. There are three types of committees. One are the functional committees, which are, say, the placement committee, student council, alumni committee, academic committee, right? These are functional committees. The second are the co-curricular committees, which are marketing, finance, operation, consulting, which are related to the domains. And third are the extracurriculars, which are sports, um, debating, theaters, and dramatics, etc.
So is there room for you to hone your talent in all these committees? You get enough time on
Definitely.
your hands?
It depends on what your priorities are, right? So if you think that that is what you want to do and you are sorted, you are not after case competitions or you are not after, academics, this is exactly what you want to do. You get enough opportunities to probably start your own interest group, which eventually turn out to be a committee. If you want that kind of exposure, it definitely provides you with platform. The truth actually is, a lot of people don't have that as a priority. Clearly so, because they have invested a lot of money. They want to, placement is usually the first thing that comes to people's mind.
Exactly. Most of the people also complain that the exposure of B schools is not on par with their undergrad, just like you mentioned. Most of the
Right.
people from DU have a similar concern. So what about that? Did you get an opportunity in theatrics exclusively?
So for me, the experience again is very different because I was a part of the placement committee. I did not have a lot of time, and as we don't interact with the people so much because of the kind of work and the pressure that we have. But yeah, people who really wanted to, they did that. They were a part of theater and they did a lot of plays in the college and participated in a lot of events.
Competition as well. And
Right.
uh, that's really nice to know, Kashish. And what about the case competitions? So anything apart from Unstock that all of you guys, probably do to get better at it?
So there are few competitions. I mean, most of the competitions come on Unstop, but there are few competitions that are not listed on Unstop. For example, ITC's Bank, which is one of the major competition, does not come through Unstop. NatWest is another competition which does not come through Unstop. These are again normal corporate case competition. Few others are international level, which you have to find out on your own and apply. There is a HALT case competition. There's an essay challenge by Peter Drucker, essay challenge, which is again international competition. So a lot of opportunities. You will not hear about it because there's
Yes,
no
you learn.
platform as such, but you'll have to do your research and find out people who have done it and how did they achieve it, right?
And how do you guys get better at it? Through the course
Practice,
of practice.
practice, practice. I mean, of course, that helps you make your PPTs and your presentation better. But a structured thinking. So you need, I feel, I honestly feel that mentorship is something which is very underrated. People don't seek mentorship from other people, right? If you talk to people and if you understand what have their journey been, it helps you a lot. It helps you understand what you can avoid, right? What mistakes you can avoid. Because eventually, probably a month, 2 months, a year down the lane, you'll understand what the right thing is. It's just that it'll cut short the process for you.
A year down the line, the vantage point changes and you get to put perspective. That's what you're trying to emphasize. And
Right, right.
what about the pedagogy, Kashish? Does it in any way aid you with better acumen to solve case competitions? Like
Uh,
how it is in IIM Ahmedabad, like I talked to one of the people from IIM Ahmedabad, she was mentioning that since all the pedagogy is driven by case study competition, they are very well adept at solving it. Does
right.
that hold? would accelerate.
It does, but I feel the case competitions and the case studies taught in class are a bit different because you don't have to solve anything after the case studies that been taught in the class, right? You have to put on your opinions and thoughts, and then the class discusses, and then you come to probably a solution or you end the discussion. It helps you a lot. I think what helps you more than that in a very weird way, I would say, is the competitiveness, right? You
Right.
might not even know anything, but when you see people being so competitive in B school, you
Yeah.
automatically learn. You start searching and you start doing. Once you start doing, you get better at it.
The process of osmosis, growing
Yeah,
by what is growing around you. Wow.
exactly.
This is something
Exactly.
I want to kind of brand that plays a role in getting the rigor going. And how is a typical day at classroom like, Kashish? Like, what are the lectures like, and how do they deal with you guys?
Right. So usually we had around say 3 to 4 lectures a day. Could vary anywhere from one lecture to 4 lectures. Um, each lecture of about 1.5 hours, and we be provided with the schedule. What we had to do before the class was read the case that was given to us and think about what are the inputs that we have, what are the doubts that we have. 50% in most of the classes, 50% of the class is dedicated to discuss the concepts, and the rest of the time to discuss the case study, right? So that is how the class is divided. If in case you have more doubts, you can anytime reach out to the professor, go to his house, call him, email him, meet him in the cafe. Any professor is available to discuss with you. So that is how it is usually designed. You also have a lot of assignments which go parallelly with that, which are a part of your marking system or grade system, which you keep doing along with that. So that's how your academics look like.
You mentioned that you can go to his house. Does he live in the campus itself?
Yes, yes, everyone lives in the campus.
Everybody gets to live in the campus. How is Jamshedpur like a city? It's located on the banks of a river, Suvarna Lake or something.
I am very poor at geography, so don't ask me that question. But yeah, it's
How
a
is
beautiful
Jamshedpur like
city.
a city? It's a beautiful.
It's a small but a beautiful city. Reason being, it's run by Tatas. It's also called Tata Nagar. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very clean city. A small city, good place to settle in.
Good place to settle. What are there in this? What are the attractions in the city beyond your campus? Like, where are the places you can go to?
That's a tough question, but yeah, there are a lot of things. There's a park called as Jubilee Park, which is one of the biggest park. A lot of pubs, cafes you'll
Oh,
find in Jamshedpur. Yeah,
that's
so
interesting.
it's an interesting place.
Yeah, that's an interesting place. And Kashish, what about the marking when it comes to your examination? How are you guys graded, and how do you get your academics evaluated?
So every subject and every professor decides his marking scheme. There's no set marking for the entire course. Usually about 60 to 70% of it will be assignments, which will be divided in 2 or 3 components. Could be quiz, assignment, presentation, right? Rest about 30-35% a midterm and an intern, and about 5% class participation, right? So
About the
that is
30% as the midterm and the end term. So the examinations really tough. Do they make you read all those books and stuff, or are they easy going?
it is more about the concepts. If you've paid attention in the classes and if you know the concepts, you are good to go. You probably don't even need to study for the exams again, right? So that's all it is about. So they don't ask you to mug up things. They will test you on your conceptual knowledge and how you apply them. That's mostly how the exams are structured.
And the grading is relative.
Yeah, it is relative.
Wow, that also adds to the relief. It's quite contrary to whatever our programs were like in UG and whatever
Exactly.
we do throughout our lives.
Exactly. It's not absolute. If it's tough for you, then it's tough for everyone, right? And that's how you'll be graded.
Wow, man, that really helps all the students give a perspective. And how about the mathematics involved? Is the course really mathematical in nature, or
Not
Okay, let me
really.
put this into perspective. Can a student from English honors or say political science honors really thrive in the campus or have a good time?
Definitely, I think no doubts about it. In fact, I was from BBA, right? And BBA does
BBA
not
still
involve.
counts.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so if you have no knowledge of accountancy, finance, and maths, right? Initial two terms, there are one subject each of quantitative techniques, but accounting or finance is at a very basic level. They want you to understand how it works, not become expert in that. Otherwise, you would be doing a CFA or a CA, right?
Exactly.
So, so they want you to know the basics so that when you want to make a decision as a manager, you know what it is, right? You should
Yeah.
not be clueless. That's
Yeah.
the objective of it. Of course, quantitative techniques could be a bit challenging. I wouldn't deny that for someone who's not done uh, maths or is not an engineer, because it was tough for me. So, from personal experience, but it is not something that you can't manage. If you pay attention and if you put in some extra work, it is quite manageable.
Quite management. And what were the specializations offered to you in your second year when you had to choose?
Right. So you have to choose your electives. You can choose marketing, strategy, operation, finance, IT, entrepreneurship, anything that you like. I think HR you can't pick because there's a separate course for HR. So if you want HR, you'll have to be in that course.
Wow. And for the given list of electives, is there any constraint that you have to pick only a couple of them? One.
So yeah, so electives basically you will be given the list of all the subjects that can be taught in the second year. You pick out the subjects that you want to study in each term, and at max you can do two specializations.
Much two specialization. That adds a lot of perspective as well. And Kashish, what does XLRI help you with beyond the job? What are the prospects of landing something beyond the job for the student?
I think it gives you a huge perspective about life because you meet so many diverse people, you know, people with different experiences, different backgrounds, and the kind of learnings that you have from them. And it's good to know that these are the people you're going to stay in touch with for your entire life. You that's something really amazing. So one of my friends is a lawyer, another one is from the army, right? So that is the kind of people you meet, and their experiences are so different from yours. Then you understand there's a lot more in life that you have ever thought of. That's
Exactly.
something which helps, and it brings in you a spirit of healthy competitiveness, which I think is very important for you to thrive in anything you want to do. If you don't have that, you probably will at some point be little laid back, which might, you know, put a halt to your growth in professional or personal life. So
Given the
that's
nature
those
of
are,
given the nature of the civilization, that's obvious. All of it is super competitive.
yeah, yeah, and especially in our country, right? It's
Exactly. Exactly.
the supply is so much more than the demand.
Exactly. And
Right.
Kashish, is there any startup support system at the campus?
So yeah, there's a eCell, right? And we have a startup foundation where if you want to do a startup, you can do, and you will be provided with the funding provided that the startup is or the idea passes. So there's an incubation center that's been started. eCell provides with you all the guest lectures from the founders of startups, which help you understand how they run it and what is the kind of exposure that you need.
Wow. Wow. And what about how do they get to pitch the ideas? Are there alumnus involved or is there someone else involved?
There are alumnus and professors involved, right? And so you get to pitch the ideas to them. In our batch, not a lot of people were into startups, so I am not 100% sure of what exactly the process is. But yeah, there are enough opportunities for it if you really want to do it.
And is there an option to defer your placements by one academy?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. But yeah, this was something that was brought to our attention that people who are interested in startup might, realize that they don't need a placement right now, but might need it in the future. So that is something that we were working on. If it's not right now, should be there in probably this or next couple of years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
emphasis on the should part.
yeah,
And
yeah.
coming on to one of the most controversial, or maybe probably the most important questions, Kashish, how does an institution justify the cost of 2.5 million rupees? What
Hmm.
value is it adding to justify that it's charging you 2.5 to 2.7 million? Can you shed a
Right.
little light on?
Sure. So everyone does an MBA for different reason, right? It could be networking, it could be changing your career path, it could be just a placement, it could be a hike in the salary. I think the platform that it provides, it gives you the opportunity to pursue any of these, and it is open for everyone. You don't have, for an MTech you have to do BTech, for an MCom you have to do BCom. MBA is open for everyone,
Yeah.
right? And you can achieve anything you want. Essentially, you don't even have to go into corporate or startup. You, if you want to become a designer per se, you get those connections that you eventually can land up there, at least a thought process that will help you go where you want.
Hmm.
Of course, with that comes expertise of people who have been teaching for several years. They know the industry, they know how everything works, and they bring in their experience to tell you that. So I feel the money that an MBA course charges you is one that I've already mentioned, the platform. Second, the kind of mentorship from the professors and the all the alumni that you get. Third is the kind of network that you build to pursue anything eventually, if not immediately.
So in some way, 2.5 million rupees is justified. Yeah.
I think more than justified, yeah.
This one. How does it weigh when you compare it to the rest of the courses that are incredibly high on ROI? How does that stand the test of time?
For example,
For example, the courses that are a part of the University of Delhi, we can talk of
mhm,
FMS, DSC, DB, and we can talk of TES as well when we talk of HRM. So how does
right.
that play into the picture?
So the way I think about it is I do not do a one-to-one comparison because I don't think, not with the colleges, but a fees and a CTC comparison, because I don't think it's justified. You are not going to earn for 1 year, right? You're going to earn for
A
the rest
lifetime.
of your life, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a salary constraint, then definitely, or a financial constraint, sorry, then you should definitely look at the colleges which you can afford. But if you think that you are okay taking a loan and you don't mind repaying, then you should look at which course provides you the best opportunities or align with your goal. For example, if I want to do an HR, right? If I'm not getting XLRI, or if I think the um, ecosystem of this is better for me because it has social sciences program and I might want to explore somewhere or want to interact with those people, then go for it irrespective of the fees,
Respect of the
right?
fees. That makes
FMS, if you feel that for some people location is a constraint, let's be real about it, because they don't want to move out of their home cities, they could have some personal reason. Then they should definitely go for FMS irrespective of the fees. If you feel that I want to get into finance and core IB, I would recommend then go for IM Calcutta because it is known for that, right? Even if you're getting FMS, the fees difference is huge. So those are the kind of realizations that we need to have before we join or enroll for a course. What are our priorities and what is the outcome that I am planning to achieve after my 2 years, and if that college is able to provide me.
it's a pretty subjective decision. So all the aspirants out there, stop obsessing over the CTC comparisons and
Right.
start the lifetime perspective into the picture. And Kashish, you mentioned that IIM Calcutta is exclusively good for finance. What about XLRI's BM program? What domain is it really popular for?
So it is majorly popular for marketing and consulting, right? A lot of people get marketing. I mean, all the top companies come and in marketing and consulting. Having said that, I don't mean to say that there are no finance role, but yeah, specializes or major strength of the batch picks up these two. And I'm talking about the BM course, not the HR course, because that's a separate
That was
specialization.
thinking. And how do students get adept at having that clarity of thought, Kashish? Something that you had. How
Hmm.
were you so sure that when you were in your second year, you're not going to explore any further, but you are going to pursue an MBA? We talked about
Hmm. So initially, when I started preparing for CAT, right, that was, I felt the natural progression after BBA. MBA sounds like a plan because you need to, for me, that's what I thought, that you need something to rise. Eventually, when I joined Urban Company, I realized you don't necessarily need an MBA. It's a good start. You probably don't need it. Had I been in Urban Company, I would have done pretty well in terms of my progression. To get that clarity of thought, you need to, I guess, do some introspection, which sadly we don't get enough time to do. For me, what I used to do and work for me whenever I used to travel, I usually put down the music and think about things, random things. And it gives me a clarity of thought, okay, this is the thing that I want to achieve, or this is where I want to focus on. I think you need to introspect, as philosophical as might sound, it helps you with a lot of things in life, in my perspective, in my limited experience.
introspection alone can help solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
That's something to ponder over. And what about people who are stuck between the choice of getting to enter in the communist part of the world, probably the government sector, and getting into
Hmm.
the private sector? What do you have to say to them? What do they
Uh,
evaluate?
so my mind has also been very business focused, right? So for me, I see what are my chances of getting into it,
Yeah.
right? If you feel that you can clear that, and if you have that priority set, definitely give an attempt to it. For me, I never felt very strongly about it because I knew it is very tough to crack, and I might not have that capability. Very honestly, might not have that IQ or might not have that skill set. So I had that understanding and that self evaluation part done correctly for me. That's why I felt MBA is right for me. If someone feels that they have the skill set and they have what it takes to crack that, and people should definitely take it. How do they compare as careers? Of course, a lot of pros and cons. You get a lot of exposure, and the kind of value that you'll be creating to the society would be at the ground zero level if you join a government service, right? Whereas here you'll be impacting the economy, but not directly. So if you want to see that real impact happening, probably government services are the better way to go for you.
It's a pretty subjective decision, but you mentioned that we need to act on our strengths. So, Kashish, is life all about doubling down on your strengths or working on your weaknesses? What is life all about? I know this is getting a little
That's
philosophical.
yeah, that's a difficult question. I think I've been jack of all, so I would say explore and first find out your strengths and work on your strengths.
Work on
Don't
your
dread over your weaknesses. Of course, by that I don't mean don't grow and learn, but you should, if you know that something's your strength, I think a top 15-20% in everything versus a top 1 or 2% in one thing, I'll choose the latter any day.
It's all about becoming world class at something specific.
At least for me, that worked out well. It might not be true for everyone.
Wow. On that note, we have come towards the end of the podcast, Ashish. And if there's one question that I'd like to summarize all of it with, is what would your advice be to all the aspirants out there who are about to embark on their preparation journey and who are about to start their classes from tomorrow or whatever their MBA program is? So, what is your advice?
Don't 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 be afraid to ask for mentorship. People are not afraid, but seek out for mentorship. Find people who can guide you well. Talk to them actively, regularly, and you'll be in a much better place, in my opinion. That's my guess.
Mentorship is the key to growth. That is something Kashish subscribes to. And with that, we come towards the end. Thank you so much, Kashish, for taking time out of your busy schedule and giving me this
Thank,
opportunity.
thank you so much, Kripal. I had a lovely time. It
Like,
was great being in this podcast.
and I look forward to connecting with you and getting your mentorship as well later on in life. But on that
Definitely.
note, thank you so much for joining me, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kripal.